So I was out looking for bison again, trying to do some photography with the new R5, and I got surrounded by a herd here. So the reason why there's so much bison activity right now is it's the middle of August in the Tetons, which is mating season for the bison. So you have these big males that are coming in and trying to mate with the females, and it causes a lot of disruption with the herd. So they're often moving around, and right now there's, as you can see behind me, there's some running happening. They are just running around, trying to find mates and trying to keep their young safe, and it's just a really crazy time out here. It's nice to be able to come out here in your car because bison are actually the most dangerous species, I think, in the park. So you don't really want to test their boundaries. They look like they'd be pretty slow, but they're actually really, really fast. I'll try and see if I can get some footage of them running. You could just see it a little bit behind me there a second ago. But they're pretty fast, so you definitely have to watch out for them, and it's nice to use the car as sort of a blind. All right, I'll show you some footage. So the sun just dipped behind the mountains. The best chances for photography at this point are probably gone, just given the darkness and how dark the bison are, but they're still very active. A bunch of the males are rolling around in the dirt and causing a ruckus out here. So I'm gonna stay out here a little bit longer and see if there's anything interesting that I can get. Bison are a really, really cool animal. They're actually the largest animal in the Tetons and in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Largest mammal, I should say. There are aspen groves that are larger technically than bison are, but the largest mammal. And from a distance, like, you probably wouldn't realize quite how big they are, but when they're right up next to your car, you're like, wow, that is a big animal. Bison used to be totally widespread across the Great Plains, and now, I mean, you see bison herds across the West, but they just don't occupy the numbers that they once did. So it's pretty cool to come out here and be able to see these big wild bison herds as sort of it once was out here. I just want to say quickly, I mentioned how fast bison are. It's just worth noting that they are also the animal that I think I'm actually the most afraid of in the park. A lot of people would say, oh, aren't you afraid of the grizzly bears or the black bears or mountain lions and such? And like, those animals are definitely dangerous and you have to be cautious around them, but they're dangerous in a more predictable way, in my opinion. Whereas bison just sort of have a mind of their own that seems very unpredictable. You just can't really tell whether they're pissed off or not because they kind of seem pissed off all the time. Also, because I talked about it in my last video and because it's a brand new camera, I'm sure all of you are curious about how the R5 did. It was really fun. I really enjoyed using that camera. It felt like the camera wasn't an impediment to me getting the shots that I wanted. Like, my 5Ds have sort of felt a little bit in the past. It felt like I was able to enjoy the experience a little bit more because the camera didn't feel like it was holding me back from the kinds of shots that I wanted to get. The 12 frames per second was awesome. It can mean the difference between that sort of perfect positioning of a bison horn if you're doing a silhouette, or a certain gesture of the legs that's a little bit more dramatic or more pleasing. And that's awesome. It's really great to get more keeper photos. The autofocus, again, I mentioned this in my last video. Bison, the eye autofocus isn't the best, but I can use the just like regular focusing system and it works still better than my DSLR worked. So I'm not really complaining about the fact that it doesn't lock on right to the eye always with Bison. I think Bison are going to be sort of an unusual case just because it tends to want to lock on focus to the horn, which I think is just interesting. It sees that as a brighter spot on a really dark animal, and it thinks that that's where you want to focus. Something I really like about mirrorless cameras that was really beneficial tonight, I was shooting into the sun and trying to get some interesting silhouettes, and when you're looking through a long lens, if you ever get the sun in your lens because you're shooting low on the horizon, I'm always kind of freaked out. It's really, really bright sometimes through that viewfinder, and you don't have to worry about that with a mirrorless camera. You obviously want to be careful about pointing your camera at the sun with a long lens in certain circumstances, particularly around sunset when it still is a little bit bright for your eyes but is okay for the camera. You're able to get some different kinds of shots that I haven't really been able to get in the past, which I think is really cool about the mirrorless camera. My first time trying wildlife videography and like sort of vlogging, and I'm hoping to do more of these videos in the future. So if you like this, definitely let me know what you think and if there's anything in particular you want to see. Yeah,